at 8.
And decap at 8. So if you don't know, has anyone taken any of the Jizz training classes in the room? No, a few of you. Well, this is Chris Howard. He is our Asterisk training manager. So he's going to be taking us through the overview of the Asterisk APIs. And if you have questions about training and what we offer, please stop Chris in the hall this week.
Be here all week, yes. Again, I'm Chris Howard, the Developer Products Training Manager at Digium. There's some of my contact info if you need to get in touch with me. A little bit of background. Like I said, I'm the Developers Products Training Manager at Digium. Before that, I worked at a company called Asterisk Solutions Group, and we built solutions around Asterisk and other telephony-type toolkits. Prior to that, I was a consultant at Nortel Networks before it dissolved. And early in my life, I did radar simulations. So today's topics, I forgot my clicker, so I'm going to have to manually do it. We're going to talk about the Asterisk APIs. That includes the Asterisk Gateway Interface, the Asterisk Manager Interface, and the newer Asterisk RESTful Interface. Note that this is a 45-minute session, and that is a lot of stuff to cover in 45 minutes, so we're going to try to squeeze it all in. So first, we'll go over the AGI. What is the Asterisk Gateway Interface? It's a standard way interface by which external applications can control the Asterisk dial plan. You can use the AGI to integrate with other systems, be it an IVR type, lookup for accounts and stuff like that, or maybe you need to do some sort of authentication to a third-party database. You can use that to communicate out. It communicates with Asterisk over standard in, standard out. Now, AGI is a dial plan application, just like app dial or app playback. It is a dial plan application. AGI uses AGI commands. And there are a few variants of AGIs, including Fast AGI, which is AGI over a TCP/IP socket. There's an eAGI, which is enhanced AGI, which actually gives you access to the audio for the call. There's another one called Async AGI, which is done kind of like a web service. And then there's Dead AGI, which is actually dead. It's no longer used. It's an AGI that it's an AGI that you would use to call on a hung-up channel. Now you can just use regular AGI to do that. Here's a sample call flow for an AGI. The call would come into Asterisk, and it would go through some dial plan applications like no-op and answer. Then it would call the AGI application with the parameter of hello world.sh, which is a shell script. That shell script commands Asterisk to stream back hello world, and it does that. The AGI terminates. We get to the next step in the dial plan, which is hang up, and the call terminates. Here's a sample of that bash script, AGI. At the top, you can see where we do a little loop where we read in these initial variables that are sent across for every AGI application. It's a set of environment variables like where in the context am I, what context am I in, what number was dialed, what's the name of the channel, and a few of those things. We'll see a whole list of those in a little bit. Then down at the bottom is where the actual stream file command comes into play. And that tells Asterisk to stream the file hello world, waiting for a pound key to terminate it. Then it does a check results, and if 200 is good, everything else is bad. So for a quick little demo, assuming I got all this set up right, y'all see that okay? Asterisk, let's spell it right. Okay, I think if I dial 300, we'll actually see it call the AGI and play back hello world. As you can see, I don't have my little pointer, I'd point at it. So it went through there and did the no-op, the answer, and then it called the AGI with the hello world.sh. which in turn, that AGI told it to play hello world. If you want to see the AGI commands, you can get a whole list of all the AGI commands that are available and a quick description of each of them. And I talked earlier about the initial environment variables that get sent across. This is an actual list of the environment variables that are sent, like what the AGI request was, whether or not it was a network AGI, what type of channel is it, it's PJSIP, the unique ID of the call, and various other things. The AGI commands are followed by a result, like we saw earlier. 200 is okay. In this case, we're telling it to stream a file. It gives us the in position of the file where either the pound was pressed or whether it went all the way through. And I'm not sure what that number represents. I've tried to correlate it into bytes or something, but I'm really not sure what that in position correlates to. Note here that AGIs are synchronous, so you issue the command, you wait for the response to come back before you issue another command. A couple of commands you can use, verbose, if you need to log some debugging. There's a bunch of different say commands. You can have it say alpha, say digits, say number, say phonetic. There's also an exec command, which is pretty powerful. It allows you to exec any dial plan application from within the AGI. So in this case, the example there is executing the application dial and dialing a PJSIP device endpoint. So I'm going to turn on AGI debugging, and we'll actually call another number. So it's playing hello world, then TT monkeys. It's waiting for some input from me. Let's sing phonetics. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. So that's another AGI script that was written in Perl. Type while I'm up here. The Perl version. And it looks pretty much like the Bash version, same sort of thing. Let me see if I can slide it over a little bit. Where we have the check results as well as reading in the environment variables. And pretty much just printing out the AGI commands to standard in, standard out. Then there's a few other commands where we say the digits that I pressed in. Normally you wouldn't just issue these AGI commands like printing them out to standard out. Usually you're going to want to use a library or a framework when working with AGIs. And there's plenty of them out there, and there are some really good libraries. I'd recommend using some of these over manually issuing these AGI commands. And I would show you, well, let me show you real quick. So this is a AGI written in a framework, and that kind of shows you how much it simplifies actually writing an AGI. In this case, we create an instance of the AGI object, and then we answer the call, let's stream a file, and hang up. We do all of that inside the AGI, so the framework handles all the communications back and forth for us. And how are we on time? So why would you use an AGI? A lot of times there's some advanced logic you need to do that really can't be done inside the dial plan, so you'd want to do it externally. You might want to communicate with a database, and even though you can do that within the Asterisk dial plan, it's a lot of times much easier to do it within a real programming language. And maybe you need to access some other resources like web services or some other proprietary API of some other system. And there's another one I had. Let me see if it's. And it's not going to work because I don't have access to the internet through the system. But what it would do, it would go out and get the current price of gold and play it back to you. It hits a web service out on the internet. Again, fast AGI is AGI over a TCP socket. You call it by passing a URI to the AGI command in the dial plan. And it can be used to load balance either multiple Asterisk instances or multiple AGI instances. And that would be kind of a sample where you have a pool of Asterisk servers running and they all hit the same fast AGI that might be doing a database depth or something. And I'm going to kind of skip this part because I'm really short on time. But there's a Twitter demo to where it would actually go out and tweet for you. But I don't have internet connection, so I can't do it. Okay, so now we're to the second of the three APIs, the Asterisk Manager Interface. The AMI is Asterisk Answer to Call Telephony integration. It allows you to control calls, monitor events and activity within Asterisk, remote real-time configuration, and a pseudo kind of CLI access. And you can remotely manipulate the config files as well. It's a pretty simple interface, and it uses clear text to send stuff across, so beware. Here's a sample of logging into the AMI just using netcat. There's an action called login, and then you give it your credentials, and you can log in. It's configured in manager.conf. That's where you turn on the manager and tell it what the users are. And there's also a manager over HTTP on port 8088. So messages. There are three different message types. There's actions, and that's something that you send to Asterisk to tell it to do something like maybe start recording a call or something like that. Then the response from the actions. Then you can get unsolicited events as well. It's like, you know, this call's up, this call hung up, and that kind of thing. The syntax of the messages are pretty much a header value type, one per line, kind of like what we saw in the login. Action : login. And you terminate it by empty lines. So it sends the action after you get a full empty line. That's a sample of logging in using Telnet or netcat. Actions are requests from the client that have associated responses that come back. Those requests can be multiple different things. I can show you a list of them. Pretty much, for the most part, you'll send a manager action, you'll get one response. However, there are some manager actions that require a list of responses, and those will actually come back as manager events. You can send an action ID with every action, and the events will come back with that same action ID, so you can correlate which messages were sent for that action. Let's look at the manager.conf. Sure.
In the diagram there, if you're bound to 3 or 4 different events, and you send, say, a response or user event or something like that, are you saying that when it comes back, it will go to more than one re-event's response to call that?
It will come back to your system with the same action ID of the request.
But if you're bound to multiple events, log user event, originate response, in the AMI I'm talking about.
Yes.
And you send something, can it come back and respond to more than one bound event, call that? Or would it always, if you find to originate the response, will it come always back to that?
It will always come back to that, yes.
It will never go anywhere else?
No, if I'm understanding the question.
All right.
So this is your manager.conf, and you can see at the bottom I have, I don't know if I can get to the bottom. All right.
Maybe the question is it's real time, or you can send a lot of comments and all the response for each comment.
Yes, you can send a lot, and it might be intermixed with each other. Like there might be some other events that you're getting back that are intermingled with yours. Yes, yes, it's very asynchronous.
Okay.
And the events aren't specific to the channel that initiated or?
Yeah.
No.
You're gonna see cross.
Yeah.
That's why you would want to send an action ID with it so you can correlate those events to what actually requested it. And that failed, of course. It's because it's admin. Let's cheat. And that ain't gonna work either.
You have a list of libraries up there a minute ago?
Yes.
And are you familiar with most of them that are on here?
I'm familiar with quite a few of them.
One in particular, Asterisk Gateway. Previously there was one Asterisk, and I guess the newest version is now Asterisk Gateway. You know the difference between the two?
I do not. That's one I'm not real familiar with. So what I'm going to do here is do an originate, and it should call one phone. And once I answer that one, it'll ring the other phone. Yes, I know I have tabs. And it does. And you can see a bunch of events that were sent across as well once the call was in place. Yeah, it can be a security nightmare.
How do we secure that?
I don't really know the answer to that. I would have to talk with the developers, see if there's a way to do it over TLS or some sort of secure channel. I'm not sure if that's available or not.
What we do is we just link it only to the local machine and then process everything outside of the event manager off that machine. So AMI is only talking to the one machine, period.
Yeah, in the manager.conf, you can set which networks can talk to the AMI. You can set it as just this host can talk to it.
Okay, that's fair. Kind of like I said.
Yeah. And like we saw there, you do get unsolicited events to the manager. And those are pretty much one-way asterisks to the AMI client. Let me go back to this. So these events right here, RTP sent. I mean, you get blasted with a lot of events. You can turn these off. You can filter them. You can tell it, don't send me any events at all, only the ones I request with an action. And you can set it up to do that, just that.
Or when you set up a user, you can tell that user exactly what they want when you measure that.
Right.
I set several users. One user just came back and then other ones are monitoring what's going on and they open up the world.
And events are divided up into classes. And you can say, I only want these certain class of events for this certain user. So maybe you don't want any of them. You can turn them all off. And one of the uses is a flash operator panel. I think I have it on my desktop. Maybe not. Let me put the right IP address in. So this is a sample of Flash Operator Panel, and it uses the Asterisk Manager events. You can see that we have a call up between 7001 and 7002. If I hang that up, you can see it clear the events. Yes?
So is this application separately talking AGI and AMI?
This one is, I think, pure AMI.
But that's how you would do it if you want to talk to both.
Yeah, you can do that. That's a good lead into something coming up.
What is that list of events you just set up, like classes? Where would you find that?
I think that's also in the manager.conf. The default manager.conf has a list and describes them. Why would you use AMI? There's a few uses for it. Screen pops maybe for when a call comes into a user. Operator consoles, you can use it to monitor the health of Asterisk. Go out and ping it and ask Asterisk questions. Show me all the current channels that are up and stuff like that. And you can do it for dialers, click to call or predicted dialers. AJAM is the Asterisk JavaScript, asynchronous JavaScript Asterisk Manager. Essentially what it is it's the manager over kind of a WebSocket. And it's kind of handy in that it stores a session when you log in. And so say you have AMI and then the AJAM interface here, and they're both receiving events. Then for some reason the network goes down and they're knocked off, and they can't can't talk to Asterisk anymore. But Asterisk is still spitting out events. Just nobody's there to listen. And then the networks come back up. Well, on an AGM interface, all those events were queued up, so you'll receive the events you missed, whereas regular AMI, you're not going to receive the missed events.
Is that buffer configurable?
Is that what?
Is the buffer configurable?
I don't know the answer, and I don't know how many messages it'll queue up either. I was asked that before, and I never found out an answer to that.
What do we find out about AGM?
Go to the Asterisk Wiki. Yeah, there should be a section on there. And there's a sample of the AGM that you can't read, but it's pretty much XML coming over the WebSocket. And like the AGI libraries, we do have, that says AGI, it should say AMI. Like the AGI libraries and frameworks, we do have AMI libraries and frameworks, and some of them are actually the same. They'll do both. Like the Asterisk Java does AMI and fast AGI. Definitely recommend using these instead of trying to homebrew your own. A lot of these are very well tested and used many places. So that brings us to the fun part. And do we have time for the fun part? We do have about 15 minutes. The Asterisk RESTful Interface. A little bit of history. In the beginning, the AGI and AMI interfaces appeared pretty early on in Asterisk, and let us kind of integrate with other systems pretty well. But one thing it did not do is allow you to actually write Asterisk applications in a different language other than the C modules that are how most Asterisk applications are written. So they came up with the ARI, the Asterisk RESTful Interface, and it's kind of sits in between AMI and AGI. There's a little overlap of the things it can do, but it's really designed for a different use. So ARI is a REST interface that allows you to build rich custom communication applications within Asterisk. It exposes a lot of the raw primitives that of Asterisk that are normally reserved for a C module. It exposes those in a RESTful type interface. And it's an asynchronous interface as well, so there's actually two different channels, if you would, for a ARI interface. There's the RESTful interface where you send commands and receive responses. Then there's this other WebSocket interface where you get events. And that's a kind of an important concept to remember when thinking about the ARI, is those two different distinct channels. So to call a ARI application, use a stasis app. And it's just an application within Asterisk that pretty much hands over control to your application. In this case, I have a Hello World application. And that's a sample of being able to use WSCat to emulate a ARI application. Let's see if we can do that real quick. I got some cheat sheets down here. So that would be the dial plan that I have is 401. So let's look at
Will the AMI, will the ARI have the same access to things like the dial plan like AMD, like AMI does?
Not really. It's there so you can build your own AMD, if that makes sense.
But so you couldn't use AMD the same way you can with AMI in the dial plan setting.
That's true. And that's not the right number. 305. That's not the number. Oh, do what? Yeah, me too. Yeah, y'all aren't even looking at that. I don't forgot the number I need to call, so let me. So it's 403. So now, as you can see, it's connected to our Hello World app that I'm emulating with the WSCat here. So now I have control of this phone call from within the ARI interface. This is the WebSocket interface. And if you notice, there's an ID here. This is the ID for the call. So what I would do, if I need to manipulate this call in any way, I've got to use that certain ID. And I'm going to,
Where's the ID generated?
by Asterisk, I don't know. I don't know where it goes. I think it's after channel. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see what happens.
That's your L.
Do I?
This is L in channels.
Channels. Thank you. And no, I'm missing something here. Looks like a closed quote. Yeah. Let's see what. No. So that's not going to work. Normally, what would happen there is it would play back Hello World to this channel, but I don't have it formed correctly.
You need a backslash in ARI.
Let me go back and look what I had. Let me look at this one. So that would be it. Not that. There we go. And it shows you that it started to play Hello World and finished playing Hello World in the WebSocket.
So we'll sit there until told to do something else.
Right, until you tell it to do something else. And we're kind of manipulating it with the raw ARI type, WSCat and curl just to send these across. Normally, again, you would probably want to use a framework that does most of this stuff for you.
You mentioned a little while ago that when you showed, what was the JavaScript library that you said?
AJAM,
Okay, you mentioned when you showed that slidization in AMI, that if Asterisk is to lose activity for some reason with the external application, Asterisk is going to keep on sending no matter what, while the other ones no longer connect.
right. The AMI is not going to be able to get all those queued events. It does not have that session variable where the AJAM has a session that identifies it as the same session from before.
So Asterisk is sending,
There's nothing to listen. Right. So, principles of REST. How many programmers in here? Quite a few. How many have worked with REST interfaces? So quite a few. So most of you know what REST is. It's essentially a way to set up an API to do using HTTP gets, posts, puts, and deletes. So in other words, you use a get to retrieve information from Asterisk, do a post to request that a resource at a certain URI do something, like in that case we were posting to it to play a sound. Put will store an entity at the URI, maybe set a channel variable or something along those lines. Then you can also delete, which will request a resource to be removed. So it's really easy to kind of just bang out requests using ARI. However, doing this with direct HTTP calls is not going to be the funnest thing. So there's a lot of abstraction layers and frameworks out there for ARI. ARI was built from a Swagger specification. You may know what Swagger is. It's pretty much defines the API itself, and that's included with Asterisk in the Asterisk source, the Swagger spec. So a lot of frameworks out there, you can just suck in the Swagger spec, and it'll generate these stubs for you for a framework. There's different categories for resources in Asterisk. For the ARI, you can manipulate some Asterisk resources, which maybe you want to get the uptime or something along those lines. You can get it. You can manipulate endpoints, play sounds to an endpoint. You can manipulate channels in the same sort of way. You can put channels in bridges. You can create bridges and throw as many channels as you want into a bridge. I actually have a ConferenceBridge app written in JavaScript that you can play sounds to and kick them out and mute them and stuff like that. I'll show you a demo of that here in a little bit. We've got 5 minutes. This is what we just went through and using the curl interface to say hello world. And that's what we got back. Question? Yes.
So if you're building, say, a screen pop thing, and you wanted to add a little more intelligence, do you use AMI and AGI exclusively, or can you also add some ARI?
I think it would be harder to do that with ARI because you are actually in control of the call at that point.
You have to do everything.
Yes,
in ARI.
yeah. So, I mean, you can write your own queuing system in ARI that might do screen pops and stuff. You know, that might be the right solution for you. I don't know.
So ARI is what you want to do if the Asterisk is just this dumb communications hardware thing.
Yeah.
And you build all the intelligence.
You build your own applications, Asterisk applications in the language of your choice. And I mean, people have rewritten AppQ in ARI and it works better for them. So, you know, that might be a solution for you where you can do your own screen pops because you have total control over your queue.
That you can't use the Asterisk application. You need to write your queue.
I'm sorry?
You can't use the Asterisk application. You need to write your application.
Right.
You can't call dial application or read the application background. You need to construct it using an interface.
Right, that's correct. There's, like I said, a couple of abstraction layers. Here's a Python one that's, you know, relatively easy to write a ARI application using these frameworks. There's a set of them that are currently available. That's not a totally inclusive set. I'm sure there's some out there that I don't know about, but that's just a few that I pulled off the Asterisk wiki. And I played around with a few of them. The Node.js one's actually pretty cool. I kind of like playing with it. In fact, I'll show you a sample of that real quick. Node ARI conf. All right, and what was the channel for that? 404? Yes. So this is actually a ConferenceBridge written in JavaScript. So it went out and checked to see if the bridge was already in existence. If not, it created a bridge. So I'm going to throw another call into it. So now both phones are in the same ConferenceBridge. I can mute the calls. I can also play monkeys to it. No, that's getting rid of the monkeys. I forgot what key does the monkeys. Well, maybe I can't. Well, I can mute it. I can mute and unmute, but I can't send the monkeys into it for some reason right now. What it would try to do is if you press a certain key, it would try to create a new, do an originate and throw, one end would be TT monkeys, the other end would be thrown into the ConferenceBridge. Then you press 4 and it would get rid of all the monkeys in the ConferenceBridge. But apparently the monkeys are not working at the moment. But that's a sample of a JavaScript. And here's the entire file for the ConferenceBridge written in JavaScript. And it's a fully functional ConferenceBridge. And it's really not that big considering what ConferenceBridge is in Asterisk. Okay, it is now 5 o'clock, so I guess we'll need to wrap it up. Any questions?
Is there any ranking or order in terms of performance, stability, that sort of thing between the different libraries? JavaScript has all overhead.
Yeah, and it's single-threaded too, and you know there's certain, when you're picking your language, you definitely need to look at some of those kind of things.
But if you have a choice of the language, is there better APIs or are there more stable libraries than others? Or?
The library authors would like to argue that, yes. But I haven't used them enough to really tell the big difference between them. I think there might be actually a session or two this week on ARI, and yes?
How could we potentially get a set of your slides?
Shoot, I can give them out, and it'll also be on YouTube shortly.
Chris, if they fill out the survey, they can put their email address.
Okay.
And send it to them.
That'll work. And do we have those surveys?
Their surveys are on the table. I know that's the last thing between you and the alcohol, but if you guys want to fill it out, and I'll get the door collected, you can hand them to me.
All right. Thanks for showing up.